After 7 years of caregiving, my mother-in-law, Hannah, passed away from pneumonia. My husband Tom and I had just finished her funeral and were at Hannah's house to sort through her belongings. The empty caregiving bed in the living room painfully reminded me of our loss. Hannah, I murmured, stroking the bed's railing, lost in memories of her, when suddenly Tom shouted, "Move! You're in the way." He marched towards the window clutching a familiar suitcase. And he threw it into the yard.
What? Wait! What are you doing?
I yelled, rushing out, forgetting even to put on my sandals. That suitcase was mine, brought from our condo for the overnight caregiving stays. Tom continued, tossing out shoes and coats into the yard.
Stop it! What's this all about?
I screamed, glaring at him. He coldly retorted, "With the old lady gone, you're useless. Get out," and began throwing more of my belongings outside. Feeling the stark reality of our strained relationship, I felt an overwhelming emptiness. "Fine, let's get divorced. I'll take my things out myself, so stop throwing them," I conceded. "Good. Write the divorce papers now," Tom demanded, smugly placing a half-filled divorce form on the table. It was clear this had been his plan all along. I silently filled it out.
"All right, I'm going to file this at the office. Clean up the house while I'm gone, got it?"
"Sure, but..." "Tom, are you sure about this? You might regret it." "No way." He scoffed and left without looking back. And just like that, our marriage ended unceremoniously. I'm Kelly. I'm 46 years old and single. I live in a quaint, old house in a small town and work at a nearby local market. My income is modest, so I live simply, but it's a peaceful, carefree life. However, just months ago, I was worn out from caring for Hannah and managing household tasks. Especially since Hannah was bedridden, my days revolved entirely around her care. Sometimes I wonder if my current life is just a dream, given the hardship I experienced back then. The meeting between my husband, Tom, and me dates back to our 20s. We were colleagues at work. We were both fresh hires in the same department. He had a girlfriend from his college days, while I was passionate about my job, eager to work more. So back then, Tom and I were just good colleagues, without any romantic feelings. That changed when we both turned 29. After a year-end party, Tom said he wanted to talk to me. Why does he want to chat now, after sitting next to me several times at the party? I wondered, walking with him to a park near the station. Tom seemed nervous and hesitant to start the conversation. To break the ice, I joked, "What's up? You're not gonna come crying about extra work again, are you?" "I'll help, but favors during the holidays come at a price." At that time, Tom often asked me for help with work. Normally, he would be asked during work, but at this time, it was a very busy period due to the year-end and New Year holidays. Requests during busy times can be difficult to bring up. I assumed on my own that Tom wanted to ask for help with work but was hesitating to do so. So I made it easier for him to speak up. But I was way off the mark. "No, it's not about work today. Kelly, will you consider dating me with marriage in mind?"
"Marriage? With me? What about your girlfriend?"
"We broke up a while ago. So, what do you think?" "I'm serious." I was silently surprised, but not displeased. In fact, I felt a growing sense of joy. Tom had always seemed sincere and kind in his work. And although I knew he had a girlfriend when we first met and had given up on any romantic thoughts, I had actually harbored feelings for him for a long time. Without hesitation, I said, I'd be happy to. Tom beamed and did a triumphant fist pump. Looking back, that might have been our happiest time. We got married within a year of dating. Our courtship was brief, but since we saw each other at work every day, we knew each other well. Turning 30 also gave us the push to tie the knot quickly. I planned to continue working after marriage. However, Tom insisted, I'm terrible at housework, so I want you to stay home after we're married. I earn enough for us, even with a couple of kids. He even told our boss, Kelly's quitting, without consulting me. Our boss, who believed in the old-fashioned idea that women should quit their jobs after marriage, agreed without hearing my side. So, I left my job, somewhat reluctantly, but soon discovered I was pregnant. There was no maternity leave at my company, so I would have had to leave anyway. Though I'm not fully happy with how it turned out, it was probably for the best. I left with everyone's well wishes, and I was excited about the life ahead with my child, I thought. But the happy future I envisioned never came to pass. One day, nearing my 4th month of pregnancy, I was struck by severe abdominal pain and rushed to the hospital. The doctor told me I had a miscarriage. My world went blank in that moment. With severe abdominal pain, I was admitted for emergency surgery and called Tom. Despite his confusion, he assured me, I'll be there right away. Waiting for Tom, I struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. In my hands was the shiny new maternity book I'd received just weeks ago. I stroked its cover repeatedly, tears streaming down my face for what seemed like hours. When Tom finally arrived, seeing my red eyes, he hugged me tightly, saying, Kelly, it's gonna be okay. I'm here for you. In that moment, I felt truly relieved to have him as my husband and slowly began to accept what had happened. 6 months after being discharged, I started trying to conceive again. To avoid repeating the past tragedy, I focused on getting the right nutrients and exercise daily by walking. I even read books about pregnancy and took notes from online stories. Despite all my efforts, the day to receive another maternity book never came. 2 years later, I decided to start infertility treatments. Tom, I'm thinking of getting treatment at the gynecologist's. Infertility treatment? Yeah. I haven't conceived since the miscarriage, so I want to get checked out. What do you think? Well, if that's what you want, I won't stop you. Use the savings for the hospital bills, he agreed. Thanks. I'll make an appointment right away. Though he agreed, Tom's attitude and tone felt distant, as if his mind was elsewhere. It's been 2 years without conceiving. I guess it's understandable, I thought. Tom's interest in having a child seemed to be fading. On top of that, lately, he had been suggesting things like wanting to buy a dog or a cat, and even using a portion of our savings to go on an overseas trip. Each time, I'd respond, maybe we'll conceive next month, so let's hold off for now. In hindsight, I realize my approach might not have been the best. I rejected his suggestions for a change of pace, focusing solely on trying to conceive. We even went as far as expensive fertility treatments, engulfing our lives in the process. My desperation contrasted starkly with Tom's waning interest in having a child. Then one day, an incident occurred. This is strange. It's almost time for the appointment. I muttered, checking my watch repeatedly outside the gynecologist's office. We were supposed to have a consultation together, as advised by the doctor. But Tom never showed up. Frustrated, I sent him a text and got a brief reply, sorry, got caught up with work. What? I can't believe this, I thought, dismayed. Despite having told him months in advance, Tom had easily chosen work over our appointment. That night, Tom didn't come home until late. When the weekend came, I brought up the topic of visiting the doctor together again. But Tom said, do we really need a kid? I think we're fine as we are, and refused to go. I was already hurt by his canceling and not coming home until morning, but these words made me more angry than sad. So, I lashed out, what's that supposed to mean? You know how hard I've been trying, right? We can't have a child by myself. Anyway, I'll let you know when I make another appointment, so make sure you come next time, okay? At that moment, I was more focused on how hard I had tried and how hurt I was than trying to bridge the growing gap between us. I didn't even try to understand why Tom would say such a thing. This incident turned our relationship completely cold. Tom never accompanied me to the hospital, not even once. Instead, he started coming home late every night and spending weekends separately. Naturally, there was no intimacy between us anymore. Could this be infidelity? With the anxiety of not conceiving and suspicions of cheating, both my mental state and our marriage were on the brink of collapse. It was Hannah, my mother-in-law, who reached out to help. After her husband passed away, Hannah had been living alone in her longtime home. Hannah's house was just 3 train stops from where we lived. Hannah and I often met for lunch and shopping. And over time, we started calling each other by first names, becoming like friends despite the age difference. One day, while having lunch as usual, Hannah said,
"Tom can be so thoughtless, I'm really sorry. The hardest is on you, Kelly. Tell me, have you had enough of Tom?"
Well. I couldn't answer right away. I was angry at Tom's behavior, but when asked if I disliked him, the answer was no. However, I knew that if things continued as they were, I would eventually come to dislike him. That was the one thing he was absolutely sure of.
"I don't hate him yet,"
I replied softly, then silently sipped my coffee. Nothing more, nothing less. That was my answer. Hannah quietly accepted my feelings, patiently waiting until I finished my coffee. With my own parents out of the picture, Hannah was both a friend and a mother figure to me. Her enveloping kindness always brought me solace. And in that moment, I felt she gave me the courage to take a step forward. So, as I finished my coffee, I said, "But we can't go on like this. I want to try again. Can you help us?"
"Of course. Let's have a meal together, the 3 of us,"
Hannah replied with a gentle and warm smile. A few weeks later, we had a dinner on the anniversary of my father-in-law's passing. During the meal, Hannah brought up our strained relationship and suggested, "This is a good opportunity to talk things out." At first, Tom mistakenly believed that I was trying to force Hannah to participate in fertility treatments against her will. So, at the beginning of our discussion, he kept refusing, claiming it was unfair to gang up 2 against 1 and that men and women think too differently for a conversation to be productive. I was so upset by Tom's behavior, I seriously considered divorce. However, Hannah remained calm. She patiently continued to talk to Tom, repeatedly conveying that I'm just a mediator. Thankfully, after a while, Tom started to listen. We uncovered several truths during this conversation. Tom no longer wanted children. He was avoiding coming home because it was all about fertility treatments. And he was open to the idea of divorce. Despite the difficult revelations, I felt this discussion was meaningful. The conversation continued, and we agreed that Tom would limit his nights out and that we wouldn't pursue a divorce. However, to be honest, our relationship was far from the harmonious one we once had. Still, I was relieved to know his late returns weren't due to infidelity and that he wasn't seriously considering divorce. Above all, I was happy to remain part of Hannah's family. Years later, one evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar hospital.
"Hello? Yes, that's my mother-in-law." "What? An accident?"
Hannah had been in an accident while traveling and was rushed to the hospital. The sudden and tragic news left me shaking, unable to stop my trembling hands. The next day, I rushed to the hospital where Hannah was admitted. Lying there, covered in bandages, was Hannah.
"No, this can't be. Hannah."
I was prepared for the worst, but the extent of her injuries left me speechless. But the tragedy didn't end there. Hannah had suffered a severe head injury in the accident, resulting in paralysis and a bedridden state.
"Caregiving."
"Yes, undoubtedly. She's fully conscious, though, so communicating won't be an issue."
"I understand,"
I replied, though I honestly don't remember much of the conversation after that. The word caregiving kept echoing in my head, blocking out everything else. The next day, I stopped Tom before he left for work to discuss what to do next. By then, Tom had changed his career to a pub manager after being invited by an old friend he met while out drinking. Caregiving. I have work, so I'll leave Mom's care to you. Tom callously said that and left the house without another word. Since his job change, he has been very busy, hardly ever at home. His lack of interest in talking to me and silently leaving the house has become a daily occurrence. But this time, it's about his own mother, right? Why is he so indifferent? I was deeply upset by Tom's lack of concern for Hannah. Determined, I decided to handle Hannah's care all by myself. I'll do it all alone. However, caregiving alone was tens of times more challenging than I had anticipated. Although I hired a caregiver within the budget for daytime care, I had to care for Hannah by myself at night. Furthermore, since Tom was against living together, I had to shuttle daily between Hannah's house and our apartment, taking care of laundry, meals, and cleaning for both places. My hair and nails were ragged, and stark circles had formed under my eyes. Even in such a state, the reason I didn't divorce was to stay part of Hannah's family.
Kelly, thank you so much for everything. But remember, if it gets too hard, it's okay to divorce. I want to stay part of your family, Hannah. So, I won't divorce.
Our bond, though only by marriage, was stronger than that of many real families. I never once regretted taking care of Hannah. My only wish was for her to live as long as possible in a comfortable environment. That was all. That was my only wish. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed since I started caring for Hannah. By then, Hannah's health had declined, and she frequently suffered from pneumonia. On the day she passed away, she had pneumonia again. I held her hand tightly, lying in her hospital bed, staying by her side until her last breath.
Thank you for everything, Hannah.
I don't know if my words reached her, but Hannah looked peaceful and content in her sleep. A few days after the funeral, Tom and I went to Hannah's house to sort through her belongings. The empty caregiving bed in the living room painfully reminded me of our loss.
Hannah!
I murmured, caressing the bed's railing, lost in memories, when Tom, carrying a familiar suitcase, angrily said, "Move. You're in the way," and started towards the window. He then opened the window and threw the suitcase into the yard.
What? Wait! What are you doing?
I exclaimed, rushing out without even putting on sandals. That suitcase was mine, brought from our apartment for overnight stays. Tom continued, throwing out shoes and coats into the yard. I collected them, yelling, "Stop it. What on earth are you doing?" glaring at him. Tom retorted, "I'm throwing away what we don't need. With the old lady gone, you're useless. Basically, you're not needed anymore. So, we're getting divorced today." "Get out," he said, starting to throw more of my things outside. I had thought that after Hannah passed, divorce might be inevitable. But I never expected to be treated like this. I felt a profound sense of emptiness, realizing our relationship had completely cooled. "All right, I get it. Let's get divorced. I'll move my things out myself, so please stop throwing them." "Fine, write the divorce papers now," Tom said with a triumphant look, pulling out a half-filled divorce form from his bag and placing it on the table. So prepared. I realized this had been his intention all along, disguised as sorting out Hannah's belongings. I silently filled out the form. "All right, I'll submit this to the city hall now. You clean up the house. Got it?" "Sure, but are you really okay with this, Tom? You might regret it." "What? No way. Don't come crying back to me later," he said dismissively and left without looking back. And just like that, our marriage came to an abrupt end. However, a few days later, Tom suddenly contacted me.
"This thief! You swindled my mom!"
Tom, who had been searching the house for Hannah's will, found a letter instructing to contact a law firm upon her death. Proudly, he called the firm, only to become furious after seeing the will's contents and contacted me.
Giving everything to you makes no sense. Refuse it.
Tom was agitatedly ranting, so I simply said, let's discuss this with a lawyer present. 3 days later, at the lawyer's office where Hannah's will was kept, a meeting took place. Hannah's will expressed her gratitude for my dedicated caregiving and wished to leave her estate to me. It also stated that she felt no need to leave any love or inheritance to Tom, who didn't value family.
I'm her son, and you're just a stranger. Why do I, her son, get nothing? I have a right to the inheritance.
Tom was furiously yelling, leaving even the lawyer at a loss. I used to know Tom as a reliable and calm person. I thought. Our relationship had cooled since the failed fertility treatments, but he had seemed more mature. He's changed so much during the 7 years of caregiving. I remembered how Tom was when we first met. But the Tom from those days is nowhere to be found now. Realizing this, I felt a sense of release. I took a deep breath and said, I'll ignore your infidelity if you just stay quiet. Or would you prefer I involve a lawyer in a different matter? Tom, stunned and at a loss for words, stammered, What are you talking about, all of a sudden? I've never cheated. He trailed off, glancing nervously at the lawyer's expression. In that moment, I knew. He was indeed unfaithful. Actually, I had no proof. Just a guess from his behavior. But it seemed I was right. I pressed further, saying, I have all the evidence, so shall we discuss this through a lawyer? If it comes to that, it's going to cause trouble for your partner as well. Of course, I had no evidence, but Tom didn't know that. The lawyer, sensing the situation, silently observed. As a result, he quickly agreed, saying, fine. I'll follow the will. But don't you dare sue me or anything. I just don't want her to find out. It seemed he was truly serious about his affair partner. Additionally, the mortgage on the apartment was fully paid, and there was a decent amount of savings, so he wasn't in need of money. The reason Tom wanted the inheritance was because he said, I need the money for my future with her. The apartment and savings just aren't enough. His girlfriend seemed to be quite expensive. Even after resolving the will's issue, Tom grumbled till the end. But since he ended up with the condo and savings, and there were no alimony or child support payments, he wasn't at a loss. Still, he seemed to always want more and more. People change so much. The man before me seemed like a complete stranger, and while I felt a sense of sadness, surprisingly, there was no regret or longing. Maybe I've changed just like Tom. I thought, as I quietly concluded the rest of the discussion. Afterward, I moved to my current old house and began hosting overnight dinner parties with old friends. That's when I incidentally heard about Tom again.
Hey, your ex-husband, Tom, right?
He's in trouble now.
Oh?
Trouble?
What happened? He was sued by the husband of the woman he was seeing. She was married. What? Really? Yeah, and he can't pay the high alimony, so he's disappeared like he's on the run. His pub is still temporarily closed too. My friend continued with more rumors about Tom, like the husband he upset is supposedly connected to the underworld, so it might not just be a getaway, he could have been abducted. And also. However, these were all speculations, the truth unclear. As a stranger now, it didn't concern me, but my friend concluded with, so, Kelly, be careful of any strangers, okay? Call me if anything happens. I felt fortunate to have someone worrying about me. Indeed, I received a considerable sum from Hannah's estate, half of which was originally my father-in-law's. I used some to buy this old house and a car for transportation, so about half of it remains. I'm saving the remaining half of the inheritance for when I might need it in my old age, in case my health fails. That's why I'm working at the local market to earn my daily living expenses. But I'm completely satisfied with this life. It's the life I've longed for.
It's been 17 years since Tom first asked me out. Now, I've found fulfilling work, regained my joy of living, and reclaimed my time. I dream of opening part of this old house as a cafe someday.